Hi guys, welcome back to the workshop. In this episode we're going to be tackling everything to do with the wiring. So that's going to be all the high voltage wiring for the Nissan Leaf batteries and also a bit of the 12 volt stuff as well. So before we get into that, you know the drill by now, click on the subscription button below and also the little bell so you get notifications of when the next video is coming out.
So we've got the sort of the wiring all untangled and laid out now in the car, roughly where it's going to go. We've connected up the motor plugs, that end, and then we've laid everything out roughly where it's going to go. So in the seat box on your side, we're going to have a relay box there, which is the black box to the left, and so we've got this wiring that's going to head over there from the ECU. Over on my side we've got the ECU, and then we're going to have the relay bank in a mirrored box on this side, and then from there you've got the wiring that goes to the throttle pedal and the brake switch, and then we've got this sort of little loom here, which is the directional switches, the ignition switch, and then the little gauge, which we know we've got to lengthen because we want that to come up into the dash up here somewhere. So there's a few bits to lengthen, a few bits to shorten, and then there'll be a lot of taping it up and putting it in conduit. But really we need a seat box, cubby box on this side so we can mount the ECU and mount the relay box, and then we can sort of work away from that. But for a loom that was sort of just knocked up on the floor, just to get it working, it's actually not bad lengths. So there's not a lot of work to do. There's just going to be a bit of neatening it up, pulling out anything we definitely don't need, and just making it fit right. So I'm just plugging in the switches. I've put them in the dashboard here, used two of the existing holes, and then drilled one in the middle. Looms lengthened as well, so that we can stick in conduit now. And the dash will go there like so, where it lives. And then we've got the little gauge to fit in as well, but I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with that just yet, but that's a bit of progress. So just on with mounting the battery, the 12 volt battery, this itty bitty one here, which is actually off of our Can-Am. That became redundant when we upgraded that, so it's just a normal 12 volt battery. It's just a little one because it's not actually going to do all that much. It's going to power the ECU, and then it'll do like the brake lights and stuff like that, so it's not going to actually have much to do, which is why a little one like that would be just fine. So mounting it, I'm just going to use a bit of this flat strip that we've got, make sort of a U-shaped bracket that will clamp it down into the seat box, and then I'm going to take the ECU mount off of the same bracket, I think, and just try and get it all in there nice and neat, roughly where it is. And then we've got these lives and earths here to deal with that will power up the ECU. So by the time I've got this mounted, terminals on there, we'll be able to power up the ECU and make sure that everything on the 12 volt side of wiring is correct. So let's get going. Right, so mount's done, just a simple U bracket, and then I've welded some studs on that will mount the ECU as well, so it's all nice and compact in there. So I'm just going to drop this in, bolt it down, plug the ECU in, then we've got our earth cable, a live cable, and that then in theory is the 12 volt system all sorted. So let's get this bolted down and see what happens. That's a good sign, isn't it? Relay's clipped in. So this is our wiring diagrams for the high voltage stuff, so for the batteries, and essentially how it should be, and hopefully how we're going to put it back together. So we've got some of the wiring there for the high voltage large gauge stuff, which is the big orange stuff you see, and then there's also the wiring that's there for sort of the control side of it, which is still high voltage in terms of it's connected to the batteries, but it's mostly just the control side of things for the BCM and stuff like that. PDM, sorry. And this is what I mean by the high voltage stuff in terms of the large gauge stuff. So you can see in this bottom corner here, and then here, they're the large gauge wires that carry the power from the battery to the motor. And then you've got this smaller gauge stuff, which is still connected to the battery terminals, but it's for, and that's what this plug's for. So it's still high voltage, which is why it's wrapped in orange, but it isn't carrying power like this. It's just for the PDM. So the next stage of the wiring is the sort of high voltage low gauge wiring, which is the sensor wiring to the batteries and then to the BMS. So they go from each battery pack. So from our middle one and our front one, it's behind the radiator, all the way back here to the BMS, which is right there on the side of that battery pack. pack, which, as you know, will end up here. So I'm laying in those wires now, and I've started putting plugs on one end, but not on the other end, so that I can put them through rubber grommets. So it passes through the bulkhead there, where there'll be a rubber grommet like that. So I've just got to pass this high voltage wire through here as well, and then both of these sets will go into the battery packet here in the tub. And now that I've got the grommets through, I'm going to put on here the other plug that joins there. So that tail will go on there, join up with them. Obviously this one's already got the plug on it, so that literally just clicks straight into there like that. And then that end there plugs into the BMS. And then, so there's two looms that I've extended. One is the shorter loom, which is here to this battery, because it's only going about roughly 1 metre length. And then the other one is this sort of zebra type one. You can see running there through the floor, and then that comes up along and then comes up here with plenty of length for me to play with, so I can cut that down because it's quite long. It doesn't need to be quite that long. And then that's all the batteries connected on the low voltage side. Obviously high voltage is already in. Sorry, it's all high voltage, that's wrong, but it's just small gauge and large gauge. So the bigger ones carry the actual power from the batteries, and the other just sensors. So that's in. It's quite a tedious job. So there's 25 wires there on that loom. So I've got to make 25 joins there. I had to make 25 joins the other side of this wire as well, so that's 50 joins per loom. There's 2 looms, so that's 100 joins. So it's quite tedious, but getting through it quite well. I've just got this plug to put on here, and then the opposite end of this one, which is in the engine bay, and then that can all be connected up. Grommets are in, so we can put the battery box in, and we can look at start assembling it then, so that's pretty good. And then the next wiring will be a little bit of the ECU stuff under that really nice seat that you can see. I'm losing the will to live, to be honest with you. I'm just putting on the second end on the short extension that I've made, which is really tedious, because putting on one end is fine because I'm going to join it or match it to anything. You've just got to put a wire to a wire. But on this side, I've got to make sure I'm putting the right wire to the right wire so that it ends up in the right pin in here, so that when we plug either end in, they're going from point A to point A and point B to point B in the same way, not going from point A to point B, if that makes sense, and in the wrong place. So I'm literally picking a wire this end, matching the pin to the pin in the plug, and then continuity testing the wiring back to make sure I get the right wire here so that they're in the right place. But it's a really dull and boring job, and I'm not enjoying it, and I'm not gonna lie. I've done 4 and I'm halfway through the 5th. I've got another 20 to do on this plug, and then I've got to go to the front of the car and do it again. So just with a longer piece of wire. So yeah, but just chipping away. Once this is done, we've got another piece of wiring to shorten, which will be much of the same sort of stuff. But this is probably the worst bit of the whole wiring that we've done throughout the whole project. And it's only bad because it's tedious. It's not particularly difficult or anything like that. It just means that I'll be awesome with the soldering iron by the time I'm done. So I'm going to keep going. All right, so we've extended the loom at the back of the car, the BMS related stuff, and now we're just shortening a loom that goes here from the rear battery pack to the ECU, which is under the driver's side. So we've just got this massive length of loom that we really didn't need, probably, I don't know, 2 meters long, with a couple of plugs in it. So we've just negating the plugs entirely, which are these ones here, which is handy because one of them's broken, and we're just shortening down the loom. So this is only a handful of wires, which is quite nice, so it shouldn't take us very long at all. So on with the next little job after that, which is basically exactly the same stuff. I'm just lengthening some wiring, which in this case is for the temperature sensors that go in the back of the battery. So each battery pack has got a temperature sensor that slots into the back of the batteries, that tells the BMS what's going on. So 3 battery packs, 3 sensors, which is handy because that's how it was in the Nissan Leaf, and that's how it is with us. It's just they're a slightly different place. I've got one really far away, so I've literally just cut the sensors, and I'm just in the process now of adding in a bit of extra wire. It's that simple, really. So there's only 2 of these to do, to lengthen, so which is 4 wires, which is nice and easy compared to what we were just doing. So we're on to doing the wiring now, as you know, and we've laid out a load of stuff already that was to do with the 12 volt side of things, and we've got some lengths still to change there. But what I'm doing at the minute now, what we're doing together, is laying out the high voltage stuff, which is the big orange wires that carry all the power. We've got a battery here, a battery in the middle, and a battery at the back. They've all got to be linked to give us the voltage, and then there's a couple of other things like this relay box under my leg, and then a battery cut-off service disconnect that's under the passenger side seat. So there's wires sort of going everywhere a little bit, so we've tried to organise it as neatly as possible. Run a load of 35mm double insulated high voltage cable to the places it should go, and now we're at the point where we've got to crimp the little ends on. So I'm going to do a lot of that, and then we can get to sort of P-clipping it all back, kneeing it up, and making a bit of sense of where it is before we can attach it to the batteries. Okay, so I'm just putting the crimps or the terminal ends on the high voltage wiring. Now, this is basically exactly the same as your normal 12 volt battery wiring, the big stuff. And other than being orange, basically. And I'm sure some tech nerd will come along and tell me exactly how different it is and why it's different, and there probably is a different, but for this purpose, in terms of putting the crimps on, it's basically the same. So I've got 35mm wire here, and then an appropriate terminal, crimp terminal. I've got a crimp tool there, hydraulic crimp tool, eBay's best, and I'm just using some Nipex wire cutters just to strip the insulation off here so I can get the terminal off. So all I'm doing is I need about 8 to 10mm of insulation off, so that I can get the wire into the terminal or into the crimp. Like that. Dropping it. Terminal drops in there, and then the crimp tool goes on. I'm just going to pull back a little bit more insulation on that one, I think.
So that goes on there like that, and then I drop it in the hydraulic tool, which basically just closes up these jaws, which then crimps down on onto the base of this. Which you can definitely do with a third hand gimme. Just trying to do it with your thumb, that is a bit painful. Just have a wire falling out. So. Wrong way down. Back it off, take it out. And then we've got one very nice uniform crimp. Good to go. Just got to do that about 30 more times.
Bus bars. Okay, because we've rearranged these batteries so they're in this sort of alignment, we needed to make up some buzz bars to join these two sections here. So I can just peel this back a bit. Oh God. So these two areas here. So we've just created a little buzz bar. We'll need this one for the battery pack that's going in the front and also in the middle as well, because we had them set up in this arrangement, so we needed to connect them. So that's what I'm doing now. I have my safety gloves on as well.
I thought they were just a fashion statement.
Okay, and also using the high voltage safety tools, although that's got a lot of swarf.
Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Dying to scream at you.
I'm dying to go.
Tiny little bug.
Sweet. Joined? Yay!
So cheers guys, thank you very much for watching this video. I know it's been a long one and probably not that exciting with all the wiring related stuff, but we are at a great point now with the series. It's even starting to look like one again. We've got all the 12 volt wiring sorted, we've got all the small gauge high voltage wiring sorted, and we've got all the large gauge high voltage wiring sorted. So in the next video, hopefully we'll be getting the batteries fitted, connected up, and get this little monster fired up. So click that subscribe button down there or down there, wherever it is, and you'll get notifications for our next video.